Hey guys, in this week's video of the Powherful 8-Week Challenge, we're going to be talking about turning challenges into lessons. This is a really important thing because as we've been through in the last couple of weeks, you've set your goals, you've made your plan, you're starting to develop habits, and you're working on exercising your discipline to make sure that you're making continuous change over time. But one thing we haven't really talked about is that you're going to come across challenges. These are things that you may see as obstacles on your path, or you may see them as stepping stones. It's really important to make sure that you continue to go through, even though you get challenges on your way, to make sure you still see results over time. Now, a challenge itself is anything that is a situation that pushes us out of our comfort zone. So this is how we learn, grow, and change. So it's very important to make sure challenges are coming into our life. But the way I describe them hopefully gives you a bit more of an understanding as to what they are. Now, the challenges we're looking for to focus on are anything that is outside of your current comfort zone, but inside your stretch zone. These are the ones that are good to focus on. So if you watched the last video on discipline, you would be really aware of the zones and that we are wanting to make sure that you're not pushing yourself so hard that you end up in your panic zone and you just freak out and go back to your comfort zone. But you're pushing yourself enough to make sure that you are getting out of that comfort zone of things that are familiar to you, automatic, and or habits that have already been built. I also recommend that you focus on challenges that move you towards where you want to be and align with you. Because technically, you could probably find challenges in every area of your life, in every direction of your life that it could go. But you want to focus on good challenges and things that are going to help grow you towards somewhere that you want to be. Challenges get us to step up and expand ourselves either by our own internal desires or also putting yourself in external situations that make you step up. So I'm going to use this diagram that's similar to the one I showed last week to explain a challenge. So technically there are two aspects to a challenge, which I'll describe here. So you should be familiar with this from last time. The white area is the comfort zone, the green area is our stretch zone, and the red out there is our panic zone, which we don't want to be in. But when you first face a challenge and go into that stretch zone, you will actually experience a little bit of fear, that little red line around there, as you leave the comfort zone. And then you're going to go through a learning stage, which is the darker green there, where you may experience some difficulty as you learn something new or develop a new skill. I think in last week's video, I made the stretch zone sound like it was absolute utopia and it was very beautiful and blissful to be in the stretch zone, which it can be, but there is a little bit more difficulty to this as you come across challenges because yes, you're outside of your comfort zone. It's not going to feel super easy. But the importance of this is that eventually when you're overcoming that fear and you're getting through that learning process, you're working and developing your skills, you do become proficient over time. And this becomes a lesson. So it's almost like learning at school, exactly the same way. You go, you learn, you overcome the initial fear of something new. You start learning, becoming familiar and understanding something. You practice it and get better at it. And then you realize that you're actually quite proficient at it. So this could be anything from tracking your food to training in the gym to slowly building your weights up over time. All of those are examples of challenges that are outside of your comfort zone. What eventually happens is this comes and absorbs into this white circle and it becomes part of your new comfort zone. So your comfort zone expands. And your baseline level, you're much more proficient at these skills. And then your new comfort zone actually pushes out your stretch zone and your panic zone as well further out so that you can start working on new skills and new challenges. This is why it's really important to work on expanding that comfort zone so that you can improve over time. So hopefully it gives you an idea of a bit of a diagram image of how a challenge can be broken down, how you can work on it. Now you know what a challenge is, let's talk about overcoming them. Now, the first most important thing you need when it comes to challenges is a growth mindset. So in psychology, they use this principle to just understand people a little bit better and to get them understanding both of these. But you can either have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. A fixed mindset is one where you believe you have a predetermined life. So you live within your comfort zone all the time with what you know and what you can currently do. Often you fear failure or anything new and you'd rather not move than failure. then fail. So you think everything is the way it is, and I do what I do, and I can't change anything about my life. Now, as you can probably tell, a fixed mindset is not a great way to be. And sometimes we can be in a fixed mindset a little bit more subtly than we think, which I'll talk about a bit later. A growth mindset is where you do believe you can change and grow. You believe that failures are just stepping stones and you're courageous to try new things. So we want to choose a growth mindset to be able to overcome challenge. Otherwise, as soon as something balks you and shows you something new, you don't think you can do it, you will fall straight back into comfort zone and habits and behaviors that are relevant to that comfort zone. So we want to start by thinking, do I have a growth mindset? The next most important thing is to choose your perspective of how you see your challenges. Now, you can choose to see your challenges as a lesson, so something to learn from and grow from, which is a growth mindset, or you can see them as a burden that's happening to you. And again, this is a fixed mindset. So this relates a lot to your thoughts and your language around what's coming up in your life and when you're thinking about this challenge. A good way to make sure that you're choosing the correct perspective is, instead of saying, why did this happen to me? Like, why am I getting all these problems with my food? Why am I not making results in the gym? Why can't I just show up to the gym? And instead saying, what is this here to teach me? So staying more open-minded to what's going on, what lessons might be coming up, and what you can learn from this situation. It's a much more open-minded way to see things and your challenges, and you're probably going to be a lot more creative with how you solve your challenges. Now, a little note on this. I get emotional sometimes when things are bothering me. It's totally fine to feel emotional about difficulties and challenges you're facing. It's healthy and normal. You can complain a little bit, but just make sure you're conscious to choose to be proactive about your situation and ask, what is this here to teach me at the end of the day, to make sure that you've got a really good perspective around your challenges. Let's talk a little bit more about that circle. So when you're going to leave your comfort zone and start something new, you're going to come up with fear. Like most people are going to come across a little bit of fear. Now, this is not to be confused with full-on panic zone. When you're in panic zone, you're way over your head. The challenge is much too hard and you are just in fight or flight mode freaking out. This is not that. This is that little safety thing saying, oh, this is a bit different to what it was before. I'm not too sure we know that we want to go here. So we want to make sure that you say thank you to your brain. You're just trying to keep us safe. But a really good way I like to look at fear is it can stand for two things. Forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. Fear can turn up as actual feelings of being frightened and scared, but more often it shows up as subtle things like excuses, rationalizing your behavior that is not aligning with where you wanted to go, procrastinating, a bit of resistance to the changes that you're making, limiting thoughts about yourself, thinking that you can't do it, and self-doubt. Saying, oh, like, who am I to think this? Who am I to want to be that person? Who am I to want to do that? All these little thoughts of beliefs, like logically, there is no real reason to them, but emotionally, the fear can cause you to want to slide back to where it's safe and where it's a little bit less uncomfortable than this new stretch zone. The most important thing is to step into that action despite the fear. So this is going to happen over time by developing something called courage. So courage is the ability to keep taking action despite having fear. Fear is not just going to disappear and go away. You get a little bit better at dealing with it, and you get much better at managing little bits of fear. But often when you take a step outside of your comfort zone, you're going to get that fear. That's just what happens. Now, but being courageous is a really important thing. Building courage comes from practicing stepping past that fear and into your stretch zone, rather than away from it. So when you come across a bit of uncomfortableness, when you're dealing with something like, say, going to the gym and you know you're going at 5 p.m. and you're just not feeling it, you're like making up excuses why today is not really the day. Again, asterisks, if you're really tired and burnt out, obviously to rest, but if you're just not feeling it, it's time to still go. That's when it's time to be like, you know what? No, I'm going to go. I'm going to take action on this. I'm going to feel so much better afterwards. So it's really important to practice stepping into those little steps and past that fear. But you also need to be clear on what fear is stopping you so you're aware of it and so you can be courageous in the face of it. And yes, then you can take action with small, manageable steps that you can handle. So not freaking yourself out into panic zone, but keep stepping forward into that stretch zone, knowing that you can do it. And really important thing is to practice positive self-talk. Like feeling great does come along with a lot of courage. Like when you've got people backing you or yourself backing you, you're going to have a lot more bravery and courage to keep going. It's really important to make sure you do practice think positive self-talk. I find affirmations are really good just to make sure that you're encouraging yourself that you are able to do this, you are good at this, you can do this. And then as you go forward, it gets a lot easier. And over time, you get better at overcoming that resistance to change, like any habit. Every time you do something, it gets a little bit easier, and you begin to trust your ability to handle it. If you have currently practiced constantly sliding back down into comfort zone, of course, you're going to feel like, oh my gosh, I can't do it. I can't ever do it because I never do it. But over time, you're going to build it up, and be more courageous. Now we'll talk about that learning section. So once you've overcome that little bit of fear, you've got the courage, you've stepped through, then you get into this learning phase. So this challenge, every challenge has a learning phase, but this is the opportunity to understand what lesson is behind the challenge that you're faced with or that you're choosing to face. So as you learn, it's important to continue to practice and apply, and this can be an ongoing journey because challenges are not necessarily black and white. Like very simply, let's use the training in the gym is the most easiest one. Training in the gym is quite easy. So your challenge may have been showing up to the gym 3 times a week, being consistent. That once you're working that into a habit and you're overcoming that challenge, you're using discipline, you're getting pretty good at it. That's cool, but then that might become the next challenge is actually pushing yourself a little bit more in your training sessions. So your challenge could be still dealing with coming to the gym 3 times a week, but pushing yourself just that little bit more. It's not necessarily ticked off and done. You still need to show up. And as things get harder, they might be a little bit harder to show up for. But it's still important to have that learning phase where you're practicing, you're applying, and eventually you will feel quite competent in whatever challenge it is, that it can be part of your comfort zone. This also goes hand in hand with a habit developing, that it becomes automatic. You can bring it into your comfort zone. It becomes more of your baseline you of who you are just day to day without pushing yourself. But if you need it, this is definitely a time to seek coaching and assistance to guide you through your challenges. If you're really struggling with something and you know the lesson's there, but you're struggling to work on it, you need help overcoming something that is pushing you down again and again, then it's a great time to get coaching. And a really important part of this learning process is that though it can be fun and rewarding, it can also be very difficult. You may make mistakes, slip back into old patterns. This is probably going to happen. It's important to have something called resilience, to not crumble and give up and just be like, oh, I can never do it. I always fail at this. I'm never going to be able to do what I want to do and achieve my goals. It's important to have that resilience to not give up. Resilience is the ability to bounce back despite difficulties, to keep showing up no matter what. And to build resilience, it's important to choose to see the big picture, have self-compassion for yourself, so make sure you're not beating yourself up when these things happen, because they are part of the journey, they're part of the lessons. Learn to rest and then continue rather than quit. I find resilience is built exactly the same as discipline over time, taking small steps, making sure that you're giving yourself that leeway and that freedom to relax and rest, but then keep showing up. But resilience is powerful, and it's going to keep you showing back up again and not completely giving up or falling off the wagon. So hopefully that gives you an understanding of challenge in a little bit of a different way, and why it's important to continue setting those challenges to expand your comfort zone, to grow over time. But there still needs to be that understanding of you can't just keep grinding at it forever. This kind of ties into avoiding the overwhelm. This is kind of a familiar lesson with almost every single Powherful lesson. A very common theme is about learning about that balance. If you overwhelm yourself with too hard a challenge or focus on way too many challenges at once, it's going to cause you to shift into that panic zone. You'd like just too many things to deal with. You need to make sure that you're looking after your baseline health. You're not too tired, or like you're undernourished or hungry, or you're not exercising properly. Those things are super important to make sure that you still are able to face your challenges, because if you feel crap, you're not going to be able to face challenges with much courage or much resilience. It's really important. Also, make sure you don't bite off more than you can chew. because you can't deal with them, and learn to understand your zone. So when are you in your stretch zone? When are you pushing that discipline energy to the stretch zone and overcoming challenges and working on challenges? Or when are you flipping into panic zone? Or when are you just sitting out in comfort zone, not really pushing yourself at all? You need to make sure you're aware of that so that you can avoid this overwhelm and this crash and burn that some people tend to do. Now, when it comes to challenges, a really important thing is to learn to pick your battles. So this comes across from the overwhelm. Like, it's important that not every challenge you need to address. So if you're a bit of a type A personality like me, you may look at your life and be like, oh, there's so many things I want to work on. Like, everything needs to be changed. Everything needs to be worked on right now. It's important to know that they don't all need to be addressed at one time. Just like building habits, you only have so much energy in a day. You must prioritize what is important to you to focus on overcoming and to stretching your comfort zone towards. Because at the end of all this, sometimes it's really good to keep certain aspects of your life in that comfort zone. If you worked hard on developing some good, healthy habits, keeping yourself at that maintenance in a really good way in that comfort zone, they're fine to be maintaining while you work on other things. You don't always have to be perfect, and you also don't have to push every single area all at once. As we said before, it just doesn't work very well, especially if you're got a busy life, you're working, you've got a family, you're working on your health and your exercise, you're involved in things. You have to be aware of all those things. You can't do everything. But pick your battles that are most important to you, prioritize what is important to you right now, and forgive yourself if you're not perfect. Another really important concept to finish off is about a circle of influence. So all of these challenges we're talking about, they're all things that you can actually influence and you can make progress on. They're just outside your comfort zone and you can take actionable steps towards them. There's a really important thing is that if you can't actually influence something, then there's not much point in wasting your precious energy over it. A lot of us get really stressed on changing things that we can't actually change. So you need to make sure that you're aware that you're changing what you can, but you need to let go of what you can't and focus just on what you can influence. So basic examples are other people's actions, the weather, any accidents that happen that were not your fault, worldwide events. They're all things that you can't directly influence, but you can choose how you respond to these things if they affect you in your daily life. So you can choose to make sure that you're taking steps forward from those things, but stressing about the actual events themselves is not going to be very helpful at all. We need to make sure you're focusing on what you can influence. So that's why most of the time when I'm talking about challenges, I'm talking about the move, mind, and munch challenges that we work on in Powherful that you can actually influence and improve your health and well-being to become powerful inside and out. But if you're wasting all of your energy stressing about things that you have absolutely no control over, you're going to have a crap time. Cool. All right. So we are now on to action. So we're almost at week 4 as well, or the end of week 4, which means we're going to do a reflection. But for this week, let's focus on, as per usual, following your plans, scheduling your habits, preparing to take action. But this week, you might want to ask yourself, what challenges are you prioritizing? And are you facing those challenges with a growth mindset? Are you holding yourself back or are you pushing yourself too hard? Find that balance. Make sure you go and achieve your goals.